Good morning. I forgot that was me today. So our names aren't right
I'm Lisa today.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I didn't have time to switch that.
I'm making her so.
Yeah. So it is the third demo, December. This week has gone by so quick.
I know.
So quick. And
you know what that means?
It means
I'm on vacation in a week. Sorry. That's what it means
not
to
that
me.
she's excited.
No, that's what it means to me. As I was working on organizing my house yesterday, I was like, oh, I have so much to do.
Yeah, so you don't want to have to do that on your vacation.
No, but my dining room table is just this mound. Of shipping boxes. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
And bags.
And bags.
I haven't ordered everything. I have shopped too, but it's just like, it's just a huge mess.
Yes.
Huge mess.
Yeah, Dave has decided that he's going to try to put a new sign out in front of our house a little closer to the road to maybe help FedEx. It's only FedEx. Everyone else has managed to find our house.
To find your house.
Yes.
We built, I don't know if I ever told you this, out of when we had McDonald's restaurants, the signs that tell you, you know, there's a McDonald's at this exit, they look like they're about this big, right?
Yeah.
They're not. They're
big.
Massive. They're actually very, very large, and they're very reflective, of course, so you can see them at night. And we cut pieces out and made a sign for my in-laws' cabin that they built down in Virginia.
Oh, yeah, I bet that's really cool.
Because it literally, the driveway was like, you'd go and it was this insane drop down. And so we always called it the crazy cabin because the driveway was crazy, and then it was really a cool cabin, but we always called it the crazy cabin. So we made a sign that had a tree in the house number, and it said crazy cabin on it, out of reflective. And then we had reflective color behind it, and then cut holes and then put it on over top of it. And you should totally do that.
I should.
Reflective, because then they can see it.
I know.
Anytime.
I was like looking online. I'm like, I need some new vinyl, and then I maybe need a reflective arrow to point from across the street towards my house.
Flashing lights.
Flashing lights. Yes.
This is me.
Welcome to Sarah's house. FedEx.
FedEx. Here.
Yeah.
You know, the the moving lights that
Moving
point.
lights.
Yes, but it was so much fun, and my in-laws didn't. They left it up, but I don't think they really liked the crazy cabin
as much.
as much as we liked it.
Look at how fluorescent that is on the screen over there.
That's what it looked like. Yes. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun making it, and we were completely bamboozled by the size of that sign. I was like, where did you get this? And he's like, it's one of those highway signs. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It was
so huge.
Crazy huge. So, all right.
So today, the design is officially up on the website.
It is.
It does say that it is $4.95, but as soon as you put it into your cart, the coupon code is automatically applied. And in case for some reason it doesn't, today's word is
night.
Night. Yes. So starry night.
Wait,
lights.
starry. Wait, what?
It's SNL. So
SNL. See, we did that. That's right.
Starry Night Lights. So
today's
for
is
SNL,
lights.
Today is lights.
Wednesday
was
that was the best
nights.
we could come up with.
It was really hard to find
an SNL code.
Right.
We came up with some really weird ones, but that was the best one that didn't sound super weird.
Right. That didn't sound super weird for Christmas demo
season
December.
Something.
Yes.
So there you go. Starry Night Lights. There is a space between them, but again, you shouldn't have to need it.
No, you shouldn't have to do anything. It will automatically be applied as soon as you put it.
Sorry, we tricked you.
Your cart.
You don't actually need it.
No.
It'll automatically apply.
Yes, we're sneaky.
We are sneaky. So you can now get the design for free on the site, and it will auto load for you.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk about a couple of tools that we like when we are doing binding. And I say we because since she showed them to me, I use them every time I do binding. And then we have the pillow here that we're going to start with. And kind of turn a corner and then are we going to switch?
We can.
Or are you going to just finish here?
I guess we can see how long it takes.
We'll see how we go time frame wise, because we don't want to keep you too long. So first things first.
So typically when you bind something, this pillow is a little different because usually when you bind something, your 3 layers are sewn together. So there is no batting together. You switch the camera.
I can do that. I got to switch those too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is my my project. I still have my tape down here just because I don't want to get that stuck someplace. And I have my backing piece on. So what I did was I just have my pieces pinned together because when I normally do a quilt, everything is quilted together. And the center pieces here, they overlap. They overlap on the sides. And they are just folded down, and I just like to stitch them so that when I go to stuff my pillow inside, the fabric doesn't stretch, but that is totally optional. What I want to do is I want to look at the top and I want to make sure that everything lines up. So there are 2 ways to do binding. If you are doing binding by hand, you are going to sew the binding to the top of the fabric project, and then you are going to hand bind it to the back. When I do binding by machine, what I do is I sew it to the back first, and then I bring it to the front. So when I'm sewing my binding, I do need to make sure that it is squared up before I start. If you're hand sewing the binding on or putting one side on with a machine and you're starting from the front, you don't necessarily have to have everything trimmed when you start your binding process, but you do when you go to flip that piece over. So mine is all trimmed up, and because it's not all stuck together, I do have my fabric sort of pinned in place here just to make sure that it doesn't shift on me. And I've got some really thick areas that I'm going to be dealing with today. So I've actually got the walking foot on the machine. So I have attached this foot here, which is the dynamic walking foot. And I am using the open toe foot attachment for this. It also has a stitch in the ditch attachment, which some people really like when they go to stitch their binding down. So I have my binding strip. I cut my binding strip 2.5 inches wide, and then I have it pressed in half. So for me, one of the things that I like to do is I like to make sure that my binding is going to fill up the space. So this super reflective ruler here is called a Sew Standard Seam Guide. And I use this because traditionally I am using about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance when I'm working with this. So I have taken the standard foot off. You're probably going to want to delete that. Mm-hmm. I have taken the standard foot off and I have placed this walking foot on. You might have a version of this. Just this one? Yeah. There we go. Okay. You might have a version of walking foot that looks like this. You might have a version of a walking foot that plugs into the back of your machine. You can use whichever one you would like. This particular foot does not come with anyone else's machine. This is an add-on for everyone, no matter which machine you received. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to want to line my fabric up with the outside edge of my foot here, and I'm going to start with that 3/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my foot down first, and I'm going to line the edge of the ruler over to the top, and I'm going to gently move my needle down, and I need to move my needle to the left. It is too close to the side, so I am going to use the wrong button. The button over here, and I'm going to move my needle position. Try that. That should work. Okay, so that is where I am going to start.
Having lots of hands is so nice.
It is really nice. So again, I have my fabric and I'm working on the wrong side. I want to make sure that I'm not starting directly on the end of my fabric piece. I'm going to want to make sure that I have a little bit left over.
You need wiggle room.
And I am going to start close to my corner. That is just my preferred place to start. So I've got all of my fabric and everything lined up with the outside edge here. And I'm double checking to make sure that my fabric is all lined up underneath.
Did you need my pie pin cushion?
And I also like to use my stiletto. So this is the Tula Pink stiletto. It's this guy right here.
It doesn't look as pretty in shadow.
No,
but
it's very pretty.
It's very pretty. It's the rainbow metal.
But I use this to kind of hold all of my pieces in place while I am stitching.
And do you also use it to know where to stop?
I do.
Kind of as a visual?
Yep, it is.
That's what I do. I stab where I want to stop sewing.
Yep, that's a good.
It holds everything where I need it to be, and it gives me a visual of, okay, hey, that red line or the red stripe or...
I'm still on a triple stitch. A little unnecessary. All right. Wrong way. Go back.
So Miss Holly, yes, this walking foot is available as an individual purchase. It is available with the foot, and that comes with 2 soles.
It comes with 2 soles, and then there's an additional
two more soles that you can purchase for it.
So you're going to want to stop about 3/8 of an inch away from the outside edge here. So here's where my fabric is all lining up. For most of you, it will be right about the point where your throat plate, sort of your feed dogs catch. So I'm going to go ahead and stop at that point. And I'm going to do 2 things. I've got a little bit of stitching here in the corner. I'm going to flip this around just to make sure that when I bring it over, I'm coming up to my line. If this goes way past my stitching line, then I'm going to need to make sure that I adjust my seam allowance. If I can't get it over to my line here, then I need to adjust my seam allowance. So you always want to double check before you get too far.
That will you're in a sweet spot.
Make sure that you are in the right spot. Lots of people sew diagonally to the corner. They do all kinds of fun, fancy things. I don't do that. What I do is I fold the fabric over diagonally to the corner. I finger press it, I turn it, and I bring that down. That is going to create a nice corner for me. And I will hold that up so that you can see. So I've created a little mitered corner, and I just want to make sure that I have everything lined up. You can use your tool to help get your stuff lined up underneath if you're not perfect. And then I'm going to slide this right back underneath my foot. This tool is very helpful, and I want to make sure that I start right on the edge. And again, I'm just making sure that I'm keeping everything lined up underneath. I'm coming back up to my corner. So I'm going to stop, put my foot up, and again, I'm going to fold diagonally into the corner, and I'm going to finger press that, and then I'm going to fold the top piece down. And then I'm going to turn that corner. And then, I know this is a surprise, you're just going to keep doing this same thing until you get around all 4 corners, which on something like this is obviously not going to take us a ton of time.
Holly is asking, I don't see that you are back stitching when you stop.
I don't. This is holding the binding on. We are going to sew it on the other side through all of the layers, so I don't find any need to do any back stitching.
And I've never done that either.
And again, I'm folding diagonally through to my corner, folding back down.
And so we are coming around. This is side 3.
Yep.
You do want to pay attention to that.
So this particular project, because that backing piece is essentially loose underneath there, you do have to, the walking foot is really, really, really going to be super helpful. And again, this is my last corner. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and fold this again diagonally into the corner and then across. And I'm only going to stitch in a couple of stitches here. So I'm just going to clear that corner and I am going to stop. So I am going to tie a little here.
Yep. We have a question on how do you figure the length for your piece?
So there's no special math to figuring the length. You just add up the square inches and make sure that your binding strip is the same size.
So measure all 4 sides of whatever piece you're trying to bind. You want obviously some extra. You're going to have a little extra with every corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then this portion that we're going to do right now, you also need, I don't know what.
About 8 inches.
Extra,
Yeah.
10 or so inches extra. So, what, 2 inches for each corner just for wiggle?
Yeah,
Something
that's
like
about
that.
right. Yeah.
So literally, just add up what you're binding.
Yep.
All the way around all 4 sides. Add 2, 4, 6, 8.
Yep.
15 to 20 inches for excess for the corners and this step here.
Typically what I do is when I'm measuring a quilt, if my quilt is 60 inches by 60 inches, when I'm measuring like how much usable inches I'm going to get out of my fabric strip, I usually only count on 40 inches. Which usually gives me plenty of inches to make my corners.
To make those corners.
And then I will add about 8 inches for the connection. So we're going to go over to this corner or this other camera here, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to use this tool to do your final join. So there's lots of different ways that you can join 2 pieces of fabric, okay? So my favorite way is using this tool here. So this is called the Cutrite Bind Up tool. And this tool there's an instructional pamphlet inside there. There's also a link to a very poorly done YouTube video that looks like she was in a cave. But you do get the gist. So you can see that there's like an engraved L and there's an engraved R, and then there is like the crosshair. So what we need to do first is we need to butt our fabric ends up. So that should be a little better. Okay. So I have my fabric here. And what I'm doing is I am just folding the edges, all right? And I like to fold the edges down, and then I'm just going to finger press. Now, I don't want my fabrics to be butted right up. I want there to be just a very, very tiny gap there. I just want to be able to see the my backing fabric between the 2. Yes. So
you need it to be a tight fit, not a loose fit.
Yep, so you just want a little bit of a gap there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, you can really use any marking tool that you want. This is a friction pen, so I'm opening this up and I'm going to mark where that fold was because that becomes the center. So here is the fold. So this line here is this fold, the center fold, and this line here was this fold here. We're going to use those markings with our ruler here. So I'm just going to make sure that I can see those, and I'm going to do that on both pieces. So I've done that side, and now I'm going to open this side up and do the same thing. So I am marking the center and then the fold, okay? So now this is the left side of my project because it is my leftmost side. So I'm going to take my ruler and I want to make sure that the L is facing up. So this tells you length and width. So that's how you know how to line up your crosshairs. So you want this to be flat. Then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to lay it on top of my fold. This is why you need a little extra fabric so that you can lay this on top. So I'm laying this.
Can you put that tool on the blue? You can't see the crosshair at the moment, so just put it over the blue. So there's the crosshair. That's great.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm using that crosshair onto my fabric here. So it's going here and here. And now I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to draw this angle. And then I'm going to slide my ruler up, line everything back up, and I'm just going to draw this little nib at the bottom. This is going to help me line my two pieces up when I cut the excess fabric off. So I'm going to move that out of my way, and I'm going to move over to the right side. And again, I want to try to get this to be flat so I can line that up. All right, so I've got my flat piece. Now I was working on the left side. Now I need to work on the right side. So I'm going to turn my ruler over so that I have the R going in the right direction. I don't want the R to be backwards. I want the R to be in the correct. And then I'm going to line, again, my length line and my width line with the mark that I drew. And I'm going to draw that diagonal line. Okay, then I'm going to slide the ruler down. And I'm going to mark that little guy right there. Now, once I have those pieces marked, I'm going to cut the excess fabric that I don't need off. So I'm cutting right through that line, all right, through the line. You don't want to cut on the outside edge of the line because that's going to make your piece grow. And I'm doing that on both sides. And again, you want to make sure that you're cutting through the line, not on the outside of the line.
So to that point, using a super thick marker or something like that, this may not be your best choice for this, this tool.
True. Okay, so now I have both of those edges cut. And now I'm going to pin them together. So I'm going to open them both up so that they are flat. Okay, and you can kind of see that the angles are already starting to match. So now all I have to do is I have to pin them right sides together. So I'm just going to take my pins and pin through. Now this is a bias edge, so you do want to be careful that you don't stretch it. So I like to do the two ends first and then go to the center. Now, we do need to sew this piece here with a 1/4 inch seam, all right? So if you have moved your needle position because you needed to take the 3/8 seam allowance, you are now going to need to move your needle position back to the 1/4 inch mark.
So make note of your machine settings for your 3/8. So you are going to need to go back to the previous setting to sew this down once you have it all together. So make note of whatever your setting is that you had for all the way around your quilt or pillow in this instance, so that you can go back to the same setting for that.
Absolutely, because it does matter. If you take too small of a seam allowance over here, it's definitely not going to work. And the shorter your project is, the harder it is
step is
to get this underneath your foot and get it in the right spot. So I'm going to move my needle position back.
But folding your project in half, like you see that there, is pretty much the best way to do that.
Absolutely.
There's no real
and
simple.
Take your time. There is absolutely, at this point, no reason to hurry this process up, because you don't want to mess this. I mean, you're so close.
This is the hardest probably part of this whole thing. At least it is for me.
And what you should notice when you're sewing this is the little crosshair that I drew earlier, I'm actually sewing right through
it.
That little piece.
Yep. Yeah, if you don't own a stiletto and you are doing binding, you need to own a stiletto.
Yeah, it's definitely super helpful. And there's a little grace here, so I mean, if it's not perfect, you can always
wiggle a little.
You've got a little wiggle room, which is part of the reason why when I butt them up together, I make sure that I don't butt them like directly together. I have a little bit of gap between them. So here is my seam, and you can see that I stitched right through that little X and right through that on the back as well. So if you really wanted to, you could take this to your ironing board and you could press this. I just finger press this open.
Same.
And once I'm done finger pressing this open, it should just kind of naturally fit in to the area. If you find that you stretched it just a little bit, you can also take this to your ironing board and you can give this a little bit of, you can smush it a little bit, but you can also like,
I said starch.
Starch it a little bit. Yeah, spray it a little bit to help kind of sort of beat that down. And if your, it doesn't stay open inside, I just kind of shove it in. There we go. Make it
do what you want.
Yes, and so now we are going to put our needle position back. There we go. And if you're not sure, you can always just put your fabric underneath and then
make sure that your needle is over the previous seam.
Yep, just line up that stitching and make sure you got everything lined up at the back side. Got a little mushy there. That's okay.
Okay, so we now have our binding attached all the way around. And at this point, we would also go to our ironing board.
Yep, I'm just finger pressing
We're just going to use our hands at this point, but you're going to take that in from the back. You're going to press that all the way over so that it is literally as smooth as possible on the back, and press that open so that when you are turning it to the front, it is all the way out.
Mm-hmm. And my secret to this, lots of people have different ways to finish this. Some people use glue. Some people use a straight stitch, some people use a blanket stitch, some people do all kinds of different things. It doesn't really matter to me how you actually, what stitch you choose to finish. I think the key to successful quilt binding is your corners. I think your corners really make or break your project.
Absolutely.
And I always make sure I go through and I do all of my corners first. I lovingly refer to them as 2-pin corners. So the key to success is you always pull your bottom piece up first. You line that up with your previous stitching line, 1 pin goes into that corner. You want to make sure that you're pinning it right through, okay? And then you're going to sort of press this out again, and you're going to bring your second part of your corner up. And then you're going to pin into that as well. And the important part of this is you need to pin in from the bottom, because you need to have access.
Take the pin out.
Exactly. Otherwise, you'll sew right over that, and you do not want to do that. So there you have a 2-pin corner.
And look at that perfect miter.
So the miter is perfect on the front, and it is perfect on the back.
And do you find that because you don't sew that angle, you have the wiggle to make that?
Yep.
That's why you stop and don't do that.
That is why I stop and I don't do that. Yep. The fabric is not sewn in that corner.
So you can move it where you need it to go.
So I have a lot of wiggle room. And really, the corners are always bulky, but if you always fold, so if you do your mitered corners the way, or you do your corners the way that I walked you through it. So you fold on a diagonal and then you fold back down. And then when you come back to the front, if the bottom piece is always folded up first, then it nests the 2 edges of your binding. The bulk gets nested in the corner, which makes your corners pretty flat, as in corners' sake, really. They can be like super big and bulky.
They can.
But this also prevents when we're stitching. So when I turn that corner, the fabric is on top and it doesn't get stuck on my foot when I turn the corner. So it does 2 things for you. It stitches that part down in a nice manner, and then
it also makes them consistent. So you have, all of your corners look the same. You don't have one corner going one way and another corner going another way. So, I wasn't, well, no, I sucked at it before. Let's just be honest. So are we?
Yeah, I think we're good.
But if we, really look at what you had before, and then, when you do have a system that gives them consistency and whatnot, even if I don't have something that's perfectly lined up on the front and the back, the consistency on the front
makes a big difference.
Night and day difference.
Yep.
And, I always say if somebody turns a project of mine over and looks at the back and says something about it, they're not ever getting another gift.
That's right.
Or they're not my friend.
Or I'll just take it back.
Okay. Exactly. Yeah, you didn't like that? Okay, yeah, it's not yours
Too
anymore.
bad for
So it sucks to be you. But,
you aren't my friend.
You're not my friend is exactly right. So that consistency just makes, and you sit down, you're like, okay, here's 1 and here's 2. And I don't pin anything other than those 2 corners.
Yeah, those are the only 2 places that I pin.
That and my stiletto.
Yep.
And I'm good to go.
Yep, that is it. And really, you can pick any stitch that you want. If you pick a stitch that is like a zigzag stitch, my suggestion for zigzag is at least pick a 3-step zigzag, because it's thick. You're going through something that is thick, and then you're swinging into something that's not as thick, which can cause some skip stitches. So the 3-step zigzag has, instead of going all the way from the left all the way to the right, it has that point in the middle. But those serpentine stitches, they kind of go like a little S. S for Sarah. No.
Exactly.
That works really, really well. So it's really great choice. Decorative stitches are good, but keep in mind you don't want them to have a ton of forward and backward motion, because it takes forever and it's very bulky and your quilt might be heavy, so the stitch doesn't always look as good. So simple is best. And if you feel like you don't drive very well, the 3-step zigzag or the serpentine stitch will look, and it looks way less obvious if it falls off of the fabric on the front or the back. It looks like you were supposed to do that, than if you were doing a straight stitch and the stitch just kind of veers in and out.
The blanket stitch is beautiful if you take the time to do it and literally line everything up 100%.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because you have to be like on the inside of your seam, because you have to have that fall on the inside on the back too. So that one definitely takes some practice.
It does. So, it would not be a beginner's stitch choice.
I tell people practice the technique first. Once you master how to put the binding on and your corners, then you can master a complicated stitch.
This one, right? What? down at the bottom. That would just get rid of the little side end.
Yes. I'm like, what is she pointing to? So that is the conclusion of our demo December.
Yes.
So we understand that our first demo December had some audio issues, and we apologize. There are a couple of other videos on Orange Pop rulers.
Orange Pops.
If you have questions on Orange Pop rulers and you can't decipher it from the video, please let us know.
Yeah, give us a buzz.
We'll be happy to walk you through anything that
answer whatever your questions are.
But we do know, so thank you.
Sorry.
And
sometimes glitches happen.
They do. So
that's all. The thing about technology, right?
Yes, it's so wonderful when it works. But I think that's it. That's all we have, right?
I think that is it. Okay. So happy demo December.
Yes.
And the files are available for free if you were just looking for the file. We do have more kits made and available. And did we get pillows in?
We did get some pillows in, so we had a few more.
So everything is available if you are looking for that now. And if you have questions on anything that we demoed, please let us know. The tools, we have the Cutrites in stock. We only have one of the measuring tool, but we can certainly get more of those quickly as well. So happy sewing.
Bye.
See you next time.